Lunchroom. Informative, enlightening, provocative, engaging. The Lunchroom on RCI. Food for thought. The station that gives you, more lunch.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. It's Monday, the 9th of September, 2024, and this is program number 1245 of the Lunchroom. Of course, we are broadcasting from a very rainy San Souci Castries on 101.1 FM radio, but you can also get us at our website. It is rcistlucia.com, and you can download our previous programs on that platform. It's in MP3 format. And you can also follow us live, this program, as it happens, on Facebook. You just have to search for the official page of Radio Caribbean International. And please be sure to like and share that as well with your friends and family. If you want to call in to tell us what's on your plate, it is 452-3046. That's the direct line number that we use. And you can just call in when the time is right. Of course, again, 452-3046. You can also reach us on our WhatsApp number. That is 724-0008. You can call in or you can message in on that WhatsApp number, and we will be able to share. You'll be able to share with us what's on your plate. And again, that number is 724-0008. Some birthday greetings for today going out to Shakira Roberts. Happy birthday to you, and wishing you an absolutely fantastic birthday celebration. Hope you're having a splendid birthday. And also to Miss Lorimer Marquis, happy birthday to you, as well as Darlene Modest, happy birthday to you. And we do hope that you're having a wonderful birthday. Some history for the day, September the 9th, back in 1543, Mary Stuart, at the age of 9 months old, was crowned Queen of Scots in the Scottish town of Stirling. 1776, on this day, the U.S. Congress officially renamed the country as the United States of America from the United Colonies. 1817, on this day, Alexander Twilight, likely the first African American to graduate from a U.S. college, received a BA degree from Middlebury College. 1914, on this day, the first fully mechanized unit in the British Army created. It was the Canadian Automobile Machine Gun Brigade, and that was, of course, was during World War I. 1993, on this day, Israel and the Palestinian Liberation Organization exchanged letters of mutual recognition. And in 2015, on this day, then Queen Elizabeth II became Great Britain's longest reigning monarch. And at that time, she was 63 years and 7 months on the throne. And that beat the previous record holder, and that which was set by her great-great-grandmother, Queen Victoria. We now move on to our dish of the day. The daily dish is brought to you the kind compliments of our good friends at Tiles Plus.
One tiles for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tiles for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Big tiles with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A+, need all kind of tiles. Come down to Tiles Plus. We also got gasware and vanity. Books, doors, you'll see. Come down to my nobody. We got the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Land Street in Castries, Bosses U Grizzlies, and Flag Street in Beaufort. Telephone number 453-7939.
Serving now, the Daily Dish.
And welcome back to our program for this brand new week. And we do hope that you're having a pretty blessed one and a good one. And of course, we enter the second week of full school week. And we are also on to a very interesting number which has been etched in the minds of many St. Lucians, and that is the 9th of the 9th, September the 9th. For St. Lucia, of course, it is important because it was back on September the 9th of 2009. We saw a very devastating fire, which in fact engulfed the surgical wing of St. Jude Hospital. St. Jude Hospital being uh, the principal general hospital serving the south of the island. And it was, in fact, originally constructed as a military hospital somewhere back in the 1940s during World War II. And after that period, when the Beanfield Air Base came to a close, and of course, eventually the departure of the Americans and those lands, including the lands with the hospital, were in fact finally returned to St. Lucia because for a very long time, in fact, even after the war, they were still the property of the United States of America, and they were finally returned back around 1960 during the time of Chief Minister George Charles. And during that period of time, a number of initiatives were afoot to seek out the redevelopment of the View Fort. Of course, a lot of the lands had, in fact, been appropriated or expropriated, you could say, from private land holdings to create this base. And of course, lots of people were, as a result, relocated. And so the need to ensure that these properties could now be used in the public interest were, of course, really, really important, and of course, for national development. And we saw some efforts by the Americans to assist in that process by virtue of, in fact, introducing a brand new secondary school, the Vieux Secondary School, which became the third secondary school institution in St. Lucia when it was opened, as well as other projects. And by 1966, the Sisters of Sorrowful Mother came into St. Lucia out of the United States to reopen this facility, which of course had been abandoned for almost 20 years. And so, of course, it then went through this phase of development, private management, and of course, the government did get involved in the assistance of that effort to rehabilitate those structures and to, in fact, ensure that it could function as a hospital for the south of the island. Some have actually stated over the years that the truth about it is when you look at the numbers, our population, and um, what we have by way of medical institutions. In fact, a report was prepared, and I think to analyze how many, what extent of facilities and infrastructure required in the health system. And it was, in fact, recommending that we really just needed one general hospital. However, of course, the reality is that of our geography and topography, making internal transportation still somewhat challenging at times. And you can well imagine on rainy days like these or rainy times like these. In fact, we are one day away from the 30th anniversary of Tropical Storm Debbie, which hit the island on the 10th of September, 1994. And of course, we know that in a situation like Debbie, where many areas were flooded, from cul-de-sac to Mabuya, and you would have these situations where it is actually very difficult, where communications are interrupted for long periods of time. And we saw that again repeated during Hurricane Thomas in 2010. And it certainly is within this context why it has been deemed that it is certainly important to still have a general hospital for the south of the island. And of course, it's also the social reality of it as well. Once a population has something and they become accustomed to it, it's somewhat very difficult to be able to take it away, right? And so, of course, the south of the island has certainly come to appreciate St. Jude Hospital, and the population sees it as an institution that they own, and that they have a significant say in, and rightfully so. In fact, these types of institutions do need to have a very strong community connection and ethos within their operations and the way they're being managed. And so, of course, having St. Jude Hospital um, was a necessity. And the fire, of course, came at an interesting time back in 2009, when the country had not too long before that embarked on constructing a new national hospital, a general hospital, if you like, which would effectively be the principal hospital for the island, which we now know as the Dr. Owen King European Union Hospital, OKEU. And that hospital, of course, in itself was very much long in coming, because that one would have been built back in 1887 during the era of Queen Victoria, who we mentioned a little earlier on, and which is why it was named after her, if you know, for her golden jubilee and all of that. And obviously, it had done its time, so to speak. But even more so, not that it could necessarily not perhaps have continued to have been developed, but the expansion of the hospital at the site that it was located was proving to be a pretty challenging one because of the way it was originally designed. There were extensions that had been done over the years, whether it was with the new pediatric block and the addition of the A&E section, and the French came in to assist in terms of another wing, the maternity wing, and the nurses' quarters, and so there were a number of add-ons already in the facility, but it was certainly not done in a very coherent way, and it did not lend itself to a facility that could, easily be expanded, especially given the fact that it was on a relatively narrow hill ridge, which at the time was actually jutting out into the sea. Now it's a little bit ways off because of reclamation, but it was certainly a challenging prospect to actually expand it further. And in fact, the decision was eventually taken after a number of different studies, which in fact recommended the establishment of the Owen King EU Hospital. That hospital went through many, many years as well. Like I said, that I think the decision to go ahead with the new national hospital at a new location was taken somewhere around 2002. And it was not until I think the financing for it was only eventually approved, I think around 2005 or thereabouts, when the European Union agreed to provide this significant grant, of close to 130, 140 million EC dollars for this project, for the construction of this new national hospital. And it just goes to show how long sometimes it takes to actually get these hospital projects going and completed. And so at the time when the fire engulfed the surgical wing of St. Jude Hospital, the uh, the country was in fact already undertaking another hospital project, and of course, so it was then facing a situation where it then had to take on two hospital projects. One, which in fact it had a guaranteed line of finance from the European Union, which is OKEU. But in the case of St. Jude Hospital, coming effectively as a result of a calamity, was not in that situation, not in that place at all. And so, effectively, a sort of an approach of let's see how we can, ask for some here and ask for some there, and go around, pass the hat around to see if we can get contributions began, both locally as well as internationally. Now, it takes time, of course, to get financing in place, but the reality is a hospital had already been damaged. Perhaps um, to our benefit in the case of St. Lucia, there was the George Odlum National Stadium, and of course, that facility had been built for the purpose of sport and sports development. And it was a pretty large facility, particularly in terms of the space below the stands. Quite a lot of floor space and rooms were available in that. I think somewhere well over 66,000 square feet of space, and that perhaps was the blessing which was available for the country. So that has really been what has been the saving grace of this overall situation, because of course, here you have a facility and the really hardworking and dedicated staff of St. Jude Hospital who are making it happen every single day, despite all those various challenges in a facility that was certainly not built for purpose. Built to be a stadium with two very distinct wings across a very large playing area, an athletics track, and they've been managing to keep it going within this context for the past 15 years or so. Far too long, no doubt, despite however long it may take for hospitals to be constructed. But certainly, we would like to believe that the light is more than at the end of the tunnel now. In that this coming week, in fact, I think on Friday, there is in fact going to be the contract signing for the commencement of the final works with respect to St. Jude Hospital's completion. Now, of course, because we have to back up to even explain what that even means within the context. You would recall that originally it was just the surgical building which had been gutted out by that fire. And the original plan of the King administration at that time, when that occurred, was really just to rehabilitate the that surgical building to fix it up. And so, and that would have been the quickest, sort of fit, so to speak. But the realization that St. Jude Hospital, even as it was in 2009, was not in a very good state. As we, of course, mentioned, it had already been around for quite some time. It had to be modernized. It lacked a lot of critical healthcare amenities. It was undersized. It would appear as well in many areas, in many departments. There were real challenges. In particular, of course, there were the issues of asbestos in the roof across the existing wards, which had not been burnt down. And so it did make good sense to reconstruct one building and leave the rest of the facility as is. A facility that really should have been received a significant overhaul, perhaps years and years before the fire even came in. So the realization was that look, the entire facility had to be redone. At one point, the plan was to somewhat do a quick rehabilitation of the facility with the hope of constructing another another hospital in the vicinity of the existing where the existing hospital is right now. That is near the George Odlum Stadium in the Beausejour area. That was the plan. So to create a 90-bed facility in that area instead of having St. Jude up at Cantonment, up at Auger. That got effectively put on a shelf by the King administration by around August of 2011, and a decision was then taken to say, hey, we're just going to do the complete overhaul of the St. Jude Hospital at the existing site, and that was deemed to be the best option available. Would you have gotten a perfect hospital within that context? No, no, because of course, the reality was that you're building within, to some degree, some existing constraints. And one particular constraint, of course, was the structure that you had existing, very, very solid structure, but albeit solid, it had certain limitations in terms of things like the height of the ground floor level. So back in those days, those buildings were built. The ventilation was quite different. It was open ventilation. There was no natural air, in other words. There were no air conditioning machines or units around at that point. And so, of course, the requirements for overhead ducting and all of that was not really around. And so, of course, as a result of that, the height of the ceilings were not what you would normally have done if you were building the hospital from scratch today. But that was a decision that was taken by the then King administration, which of course included individuals like Mr. Guy Joseph, like Mr. Alan Chasney. They were all part of that 2006, 2007 to 2011 administration, which went ahead with this plan for rehabilitation of the buildings. And of course, that continued as we saw with the Kenny Anthony administration, also having to find the financing to actually make it happen. Because that was, of course, the big holdup, the major issue with respect to completing St. Jude, the finance. And if you don't have the finance available, then it's generally never going to happen. And of course, it was within that context. Let's not forget, you were talking about a time back in 2012 where the country was facing a significant fiscal deficit in the region of 10%. All right. And so what that effectively meant was that the ability for the country to go out and borrow was severely hampered at that time. And of course, which is at that, this is pre-VAT. We hadn't even seen the introduction of VAT yet. And there were major issues to tackle in terms of the country's finances. And of course, that meant that you had to now go out to see whether you could get a friendly government to give you some sort of low interest loans, because you could not go to the regional government securities market, the RGSM, and float instruments like bonds and treasury bills to be able to raise those funds. There was a limited appetite for that type of financing, and so eventually the Taiwanese government came on board with a 20 million US dollar loan for the completion of St. Jude Hospital. And of course, we know how that went happen after that. Albeit the works were continuing, and then we saw another change of administration, and then that change of administration led to a stoppage of the project and a technical review being done, and then a decision to say, hey, well, you know what, we want to build it in another location. And then there was pushback. And then they said, okay, we won't build it at another location. We'll build it right on the existing campus of St. Jude Hospital. And we'll somehow use some of the existing buildings as part of the project as well. And this is how we've now ended up in a situation where we've at St. Jude Hospital, we effectively have two hospitals or two sets of buildings from different periods, and some of the buildings are being used. Some of the buildings from each period are actually going to be used within what is now being proposed as the final project completion. So the current administration has decided to go ahead with the original plan, so to speak, for St. Jude Hospital, which is to utilize the three main original buildings of St. Jude, the surgical building, West Wing, and as well as the East Wing, and the other supporting buildings like the laundry and maintenance building, the some of the new ones that were constructed under the project include things like the morgue and the ambulance and security building, the warehouse building, as well as um, parts of the project that, as I said, were being built during the former administration, the Shastney administration. So the dialysis building, the physiotherapy building, those buildings are actually going to be part of this new St. Jude completion. So let's hope it can actually happen. And of course, we're going to hopefully get lots of detail regarding that this coming Friday when there's a signing ceremony for the contracts with respect to the completion of St. Jude Hospital. Of course, there was a statement made by the St. Lucia Medical and Dental Association on the anniversary of St. Jude Hospital, and certainly we want to thank them for making the statement and for, of course, ensuring that we keep our eyes on the prize in terms of delivering St. Jude. That is very, very, very important for the country. I think it's very important for the psyche of the country as well, because after 15 years of going through this and still not an open, completed, functioning hospital, certainly has kept us. It's been a major, a scar almost in terms of the development of the country, and we need to be able to have that project ticked off and to say, hey, yes, we now have a properly functioning general hospital in the south of the island that is meeting the needs of the population. And of course, ensuring that we can, in cases of emergency, respond to that. But of course, in terms of the general healthcare, right, respond to it in a very meaningful way. And in fact, a lot of the redesign, a lot of the sort of the shifting of the goalposts to a great degree was as a result of St. Jude Hospital itself. The board wanting to, in fact, see over the years that the facility that it is going to receive is going to be a very high class facility that, in fact, is allowing it to be more sustainable, particularly from a financial perspective as well. So the efficiency of the hospital matters. Hospitals, at the end of the day, are not these static buildings. They are very, very dynamic spaces with complex systems that are running 24/7, that require continuous maintenance, that require movement of people, movement of facilities. It's a real complex space that requires a lot of resources, and the efficiency of those spaces matters quite a lot to the overall cost of operations, right? And so how well these facilities are designed is actually really important to the long term sustainability of the project. One of the areas, for instance, I remember they had were very interested in actually seeing included were the availability of private rooms for patients. Now, that has changed over the years. The days of having large ward rooms holding 12 or 14 or 20 persons in one room, that doesn't happen again at all. In fact, the international health guidelines currently require that you should really have no more than four inpatients, ambulatory persons in a ward room at any one time. That's the world standard right now. Not more than four, sharing a washroom facility and what have you. And in fact, when you look at places like the United States and many developed countries, the tendency is actually to go far more towards having single patient rooms where individuals actually have privacy and in terms of management of patients. That's actually what is the pretty much you're seeing quite a lot of around the world. That's not to say that you still don't have in some places these shared ward rooms, but that's the goal. And in fact, they wanted to see a lot more of that because they figured that it could also help the hospital in terms of gaining a larger premium for those private rooms. So a lot of those things certainly will help overall in terms of the management of the hospital in the long run. And we do hope that we can see very, very soon a completion of St. Jude Hospital. That's our dish of the day. When we come back, we'll be taking in our weather report and then we'll come back to take in some calls.
This has been The Daily Dish.
One tiles for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tiles for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Because if unbeatable cost. Customer service, A plus. Need all kind of tiles. Come down to Tiles Plus. We also got gasway and vanity. Books, doors, you'll see. Come down to mind nobody. We got the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Land Street in Castries, Bosses Bruce Lakes, and Flag Street in Beaufort. Telephone number 453-7939. Tiles Plus.
Island style, yeah. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. We'll have to make the right choice. Island style. Whoa. We got the time that will make you happy. Island style. Oh yeah. We make your dream come alive. In Island style.
We have tiles and king sets, pieces and ground. Everything you need is on the house out. For the best price and the latest style. Take a little drive down to Island Style car.
We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. Quality, price, service, choice. It's all an Island Style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Bellarosa, Rodney Bay, on the John Compton Highway, Castries, and behind Ruby's Gas Station on the Library Viewfort Highway. So call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style, Tile and Bath. When you think tile, think Island Style.
This is Radio Caribbean International. It's now time for the weather news.
And that's all, of course, on 1.1. It's now time for your weather report as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style Talent Bar. The forecast for St. Lucia Valley for the next 24 hours. Winds will be blowing from between the east and southeast near 12 miles per hour or 19 kilometers per hour, becoming lighter and variable or calm at times. The weather mostly cloudy with scattered showers, which may be heavy in some areas, and isolated thunderstorms. There is an advisory in here which reads the residents and motorists in areas prone to flooding and landslides are advised to be vigilant and exercise caution. The forecast for Los Angeles is partly cloudy to cloudy with scattered showers, which may be locally heavy and isolated thunderstorms. And the tropical weather outlook, a low level trough together with an intertropical convergence zone will cause the atmosphere over the eastern Caribbean region to remain very moist and unstable. Generally cloudy skies with scattered showers and thunderstorms will continue over the region during the next 24 hours. A tropical wave over the western tropical Atlantic is moving westward near 15 miles per hour or 24 kilometers per hour. This wave is expected to affect the region tomorrow. Also, an area of low pressure located over the central tropical Atlantic remains nearly stationary. This system has a medium chance of tropical cyclone formation in the next 48 hours and a high chance through the next 7 days. Another area of low pressure located over the eastern tropical Atlantic has a medium chance of tropical cyclone development during the next 7 days. And this was your weather report as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style Talamba.
This has been RCI's Weather News. For more information, call the Weather Hotline at 454-3452. RCI 101 number 1.
Island style, yeah. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. We'll have to make the right choice. Island style. Whoa. We got the time that will make you happy. Island style. Oh yeah. We make your dream come alive. In Island style.
We have tiles and princess, pieces and ground. Everything you need is on the house out. For the best price and the latest style. Take a little drive down to Island Style car.
We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. Quality, price, service, choice. It's all an Island Style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Belarus and Rodney Bay on the John Compton Highway, Cass Street, and behind Ruby's Gas Station on the Library Viewfort Highway. Or call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style, Tile and Bath. When you think tile, think Island Style.
And welcome back to the Lunchroom at Radio Caribbean International. And of course, as we did mention, it is the anniversary, 15 years since the devastating fire at St. Jude Hospital back on the 9th of September 2009. And of course, the country is still awaiting the return of St. Jude Hospital to its original home up at Cantonment in Vieux. Currently, it is being housed at the George Odlum National Stadium. And of course, as you can well imagine, that is not working out to the benefit of many athletes. It certainly did not stop Julian Alfred, yes, easily enough, but it certainly is not the ideal situation. And we, of course, have been told by the current administration, the government of St. Lucia, that the government has secured financing for the completion of St. Jude Hospital. And that is through the assistance of the loan, a low interest loan from the Saudi government, I believe. And of course, that is going to be there's going to be a signing of an actual contracts, I should say, on Friday this week. Friday, I think on the 12th of September, so that the project can continue to roll on. The total amount received from the Saudi government is somewhere in the region of 75 million US dollars. And if you do the conversion, that would put you somewhere around over almost 200 million EC dollars. So 202 million or so EC dollars. So a significant amount of money being apportioned to the completion of St. Jude Hospital after, of course, a significant amount has already been spent. And we saw quite a lot of back and forth of politicians over the years over the amounts that were spent on St. Jude Hospital. But what is certain, though, is the amount of waste that has resulted in respect of these projects. Because I think up until 2016, when one looks at the estimates of revenue and expenditure, which of course are public documents available from the government of St. Lucia, about $98 million had already been expended for St. Jude Hospital. The total final budget was placed at about $137 million. So there was roughly another $40 million to have been spent on St. Jude. And a lot of that $98 million was actually for equipment and materials which had already been purchased and in many instances were on island, were in storage, and were effectively waiting for being utilized, being installed. And unfortunately, a lot of that equipment um, beyond 2016 ended up having to be, I suppose, discarded. And the big question is, what happened to a lot of that equipment? What happened to a lot of those materials? We saw a particular government minister going around with the police and corralling and going into private premises to take materials and whatnot. As to what happened to a lot of those materials, we really have to get a good sense of that, because effectively what we're now going to be seeing is double spending. We're now ending up in a situation where, um, for this new project, no doubt they will probably have to be buying new laundry equipment. Well, they probably have to be buying new kitchen equipment. They probably have to be going out and making new orders for a lot of items. A significant amount of money, in fact, was even put in, and let's hope that that can be recovered, or put towards this project in terms of placing deposits on a lot of the specialized diagnostic equipment, because a lot of these machines can only be brought into almost completed spaces where there's existing um, temperature control environments. And so you have to really time the arrival on island appropriately, and you don't want them to come in beforehand. And so there was a lot of money that had been already expended with companies like General Electric, GE, that makes a lot of the equipment, to put things on hold. And of course, they don't keep these things on hold forever. And the reality is that models will change, equipment, um, the whole series sometimes change, so that you would then have to be looking at a lot of these things with almost fresh eyes sometimes, when you are looking to continue and complete these very specialized diagnostic equipment. The oxygen plant, for instance, which is another innovation being introduced to the new St. Jude. I believe that may have also been already purchased. As to whether, in fact, it was on, I don't know. We'll have to find out a lot of these details, perhaps, from the team looking into this project. But that was certainly a very important innovation, because before that, and in fact, still, I believe what obtains with respect to St. Jude Hospital operations right now is that a lot of the oxygen has to be brought in on vehicles, on trucks, into in down to the south of the island. And of course, there are tremendous costs involved in doing some of that. And so, of course, having an on-site oxygen generation plant was seen to be a step in the right direction in terms of efficiency of hospital operations. So there are a number of aspects, of course, that have to happen and go right at our health facilities. And the same, of course, obtains as well with the Owen King EU Hospital, because that was a special purpose, special built hospital, very careful way of designing the facility, with a lot of the core services in the I guess you could call it the main part of the hand, and the other the ward rooms, largely on these various fingers. And part of the challenge right now with OKEU, we've been hearing quite a bit as well from the St. Lucia Medical and Dental Association regarding Owen King EU Hospital and the state of play there. And we heard from uh, the Minister for Health on this matter and talking about the extent of accumulated debt that has resulted in that facility. In effect, some of the debt that the OKEU is dealing with is probably debt that existed possibly even from the time of Victoria Hospital that has been carried over, and it's certainly not a very good situation for a facility agency to be in, to be saddled with so much debt. But effectively, what it means, it would appear, is that the cost of operating the hospital is more than what is available and being provided to the hospital. Now, uh, in the case of St. Jude, for instance, as well as now OKEU, the Millennium Heights Medical Complex, the government provides an annual subvention or grant or transfer to that institution. And there is that expectation as well that the institution will also be raising some of its financing, through revenue. Uh, but we do know the reality that a lot of it is really not being collected. And we also know that in terms of payment of hospital bills, this is not something that is pretty common in the case of St. Lucia. And so, again, the question of healthcare financing is pretty much central to this entire conversation regarding the state of our healthcare facilities. I notice we have a call coming in on our WhatsApp platform. I'm not too sure if we'll be able to get that connected. Let's see if we can get that in at this time. Good afternoon and welcome to the lunchroom. What's on your plate today?
Hello, is this the Millennium Heights Medical Complex Hospital?
No, it is not. No, I'm not sure why you would think so. This is actually the lunchroom at Radio Caribbean International. We're speaking about healthcare right about now.
Oh, don't suppose you've got the number for the hospital?
No, I don't actually. Sorry about that.
Okay. Thank you for the help.
Take care. Sure, take care.
Bye.
And well, I suppose we're speaking quite a lot about healthcare right now, so maybe that's where that mix-up may have come out of. But the issue is it comes back to how these facilities are sustained, and if you're going to be in a situation where you effectively don't have enough cash flow on an annual basis, your debts are going to start accumulating. Invariably, in very many instances, there may be the inability to maintain the facility appropriately. And by the facility, I'm speaking not just in terms of the physical structure, but of course also the equipment. The equipment sometimes, of course, has to be replaced over time as well, and that a lot of these are major costs that are often not built into the overall current financing that exists for our healthcare facilities. And that's where we have a significant challenge. And you can therefore see why you might end up having a situation of a fire occurring at a hospital, as we saw back in September of 2009. And of course, it's not to say that, you know, it's something that we've actually ever even known exactly why that fire occurred, because I'm not sure, it was somewhat inconclusive as far as I can recall. But you can see the risk then that occurs when you're actually not able to properly maintain those facilities. So they may look very nice as they're open. And of course, we not too long ago opened the OKEU hospital. and it can very quickly deteriorate if it's not being well maintained. And so that's part of the challenge, of course, in terms of the delivery of service. The other major challenge that occurred with respect to OKEU that you'd well be aware of is the reality of the bed capacity. And we've been hearing complaints about that. And what that is, in fact, doing is it's placing quite a lot of pressure on the accident and emergency department as well, because in some instances, uh, some people may, the recommendation might be to admit individuals, and there are no beds, ward beds available for admitting patients. And that, of course, is a challenge right now. Now, it comes back to, well, what is the ideal number of beds that are required on island? Um, and again, there was a study that looked at that based on our population and other factors, health factors. And from what I recall, I think the recommendation was that we needed somewhere around 220, 225 beds to properly serve the entire island. Now, the original design of OKEU was actually to have in the region of, I believe, 160 beds. And because, of course, one of because of cost constraints, we were told, by the time it was, because remember, there was financing that had been approved and by the EU. And by the time the project actually started, costs had, material costs and equipment costs, whatever it is, had already escalated. So there was a decision taken to reduce on the size of the hospital. So whereas it was supposed to have been 5 fingers, so to speak, one of the fingers was cut off. And the result of that was that OKEU is short, I think of in the region of about 40 or so beds, 30 to 40 beds short. So, and of course, remember, in addition to that, we also have a situation where you have St. Jude Hospital not operating at its optimum at the moment. So I think it's under 60 beds currently operating at St. Jude Hospital. So effectively on island, you're speaking of about 180 to 190 beds, whereas in fact, um, quite likely we need another 30 to 40 beds, within that our general hospitals and district hospitals. So that is a pretty major crunch in terms of the delivery of healthcare service at that secondary care level. Uh, the plan, I think, was to try to seek out um, some rehabilitation or reuse of some of the space at the Victoria Hospital. I'm not too sure where that is at the moment, and there's some good sense to some degree in terms of trying to utilize the existing space, of course, in terms of not having to spend too much in terms of major construction. Um, and to have that space available for patients which are not critical. They may just require bed rest. They may, I think, in the case of Barbados, for instance, in their healthcare system, they do have what are known as gerontological hospitals or geriatric hospitals attached to some of their polyclinics, where particularly for older patients who simply uh, maybe in patient care for longer periods of time, and so they have those types of facilities there. Could that perhaps be the use of a Victoria Hospital as a sort of a senior care facility, geriatric hospital? Maybe that is something that could certainly be, I think, considered. But the other reality, of course, is that once you go the route of having another facility in another location, we then have the question of of a duplication of certain costs. And so I suspect there is going to be a need to simply bite the bullet on the matter of that fifth finger and simply having to do that expansion of the Owen King EU Hospital so that it can, in fact, can come up to its the recommended capacity of beds on within that one campus, within that one space up at Kubari. It may very well work out from a long-term cost of care and management perspective to be beneficial to everybody in that hospital. So let's hope that we can see some good movement with respect to St. Jude Hospital in the coming weeks and months ahead, because I think we can all agree that it is far, far overdue, and let's hope we can see it finally heading home. That's our program for today, and we're back again tomorrow for another one. We do hope that you can join us for that. I'm your host, Calix George Jr., saying goodbye.